Hello again. I certainly hope this finds you all healthy and although not happy about being in confinement, but healthy nonetheless. So far so good at my house. The cats are being a little weird, but we're good. So what we want to look at next is asking questions and engaging students in discussion. We've talked about reflection. We've talked about uh, learning, ways of learning. We've talked about all kinds of things, but we need to talk about how we engage students in discussion. And as we think about it, in some classrooms, unfortunately, in a lot of classrooms, what pass for discussions are really dull, repetitive question and answer periods. The teacher asks a question, the students give an answer. The teacher asks a question, the students give an answer, without ever digging down deep enough to find out why or where they came up with the answer. We have to do that. We have to get in their heads. We have to find out what their thinking processes are, what's going on with their thought. When this type of discussion occurs, many students disengage entirely. They just quit talking, just like you do with these. These are boring. I get it. I'm bored to tears doing this. I miss all of your smiling faces. But this is what we have here. We need to engage students in more than just questioning. We need to query. We need to dig deeper into their knowledge base. Where are they coming up with those answers? How are they figuring this out? Authentic learning experiences depend heavily on the promotion of high quality and actively engaged thinking. There are some big words in this one sentence. Authentic learning experiences. Make it relevant to them. Make it relevant to what they know, what they're doing, what's going on in their community. One of the things you have to remember, my little potato chips, is that what's going on right now, down the road in your teaching career, some of your students will not remember this at all. They won't understand why, they won't get it and see the relevance, but you have to make that come alive for them. Active, engaged thinking. You're actively engaging them. You're getting them to think about their thinking. Where are they getting these ideas? Why are they thinking this way? And that way you can get in their heads and correct incorrect things, or in the reverse, you can help them see further how that thinking is correct. Teachers who are committed to creating authentic learning for their students do so by planning discussion that stimulate higher level thinking. You have to plan your discussion. It has to be in your lesson plan. You have to write out those questions. You can't just leave it to chance or whim. Yes, you're going to come up with questions from time to time that you hadn't necessarily planned on asking. But that's why I've been telling you, you've got to get those in that lesson plan. They have to be there. You have to also stimulate higher level thinking. The only way to do that a lot of times is to raise the level of your questioning. Get those questions up there on Bloom's taxonomy with those verbs. You need to teach them problem solving skills, critical thinking, creative thinking, by acknowledging the multiple intelligences of their students. You have to hit the intelligences. For right now, we're only hitting auditory and visual. I get that. We're only doing those two, and that makes it tough. I am not an online learner. I know a lot of you are not online learners. Nor are you visual or auditory learners. I get it. But for right now, this is where we are. We're going to have to make the best of it. These terms and concepts can be confusing and overwhelming for the beginning teacher. I'm telling you, when you start teaching, when you are beginning your teaching career, stick to the book. If you have to, stick to the book. There is no sin in that. Don't try to do too much too fast. You're gonna throw your hands up because it might go to vinegar and you're gonna be all discombobulated. Don't let that happen. Stick to the book. It's okay. Sometimes beginning teachers think it's necessary to establish separate programs for each of your students. No, it's not. It's not. You're teaching a classroom. Yes, it's always about the kids. It's always about the students. But you cannot possibly tailor classroom instruction to each and every individual student. This is not the case. It is possible to discover common attributes among the students and plan classroom discussions and other experiences that promote high-level thinking, problem skills solving, and critical and creative thinking in all of the multiple intelligences at the same time. You have to be creative. You have to work to do some of these things. Yes, teaching is a lot of work. There's no getting around it. And there are none who are finding this out any faster right now than parents who are trying to homeschool with the guidance of the teacher. They're just finding out that teachers should be paid $1 billion instead of the piddly sum that they're paid. They're worth a lot more. I saw a really funny thing on Facebook the other night with a mother who was praying about that she was not a math teacher. There's the Common Core, and the only thing in common that they were having was frustration and whatever, and she wasn't the cafeteria lady, and on, and it was hysterically funny, but it's true. It's very, very true. One question may pose a problem, another may call for a creative response, a third may be analytical, and a fourth may ask students to evaluate a situation and make a critical judgment. One of the things you have to be careful of when you're asking your questions is you have to know your students. You have to know their abilities. You have to know what they're capable of and what they aren't capable of. If they're not capable of making a leap, you're going to have to scaffold your instruction for them. You have to make sure that you are giving them enough that they can use to get to wherever it is you want them to be. The best, which is to say the most highly engaging classroom discussions, do all of these things in a spontaneous, non-regimented way. That takes a lot of practice. That takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of energy. I finally, last night, slept fairly decently. I have not slept for the past week and a half, hardly, because I've been worried about how can I do this, what am I doing, and am I doing the best job I know how, can we get this done? When we're thinking about problem-solving discussions with your instruction, this can be done by presenting students with a complex problem. How complex depends on your students' level of expertise and their ways of thinking. And then providing adequate scaffolding support. You have to scaffold your instruction. You have to find them in one spot and then move them up to the next rung of the ladder, so to speak, but don't let that safety net go until they have a firm hold on that next step. You have to scaffold your instruction. And I can't emphasize this enough. You have to model your instruction. You have to model, so they know what you want, what you are expecting of them. To create productive problem-solving discussions, the teacher must understand the processes involved. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know multiple ways of solving an issue. And then structure the questions to guide the students through the process. If you have one falling by the wayside, you have to pull them back in some way, shape, or form, not just say, no, you're wrong. You have to pull them back with good guiding questions to get them back on the right path and on the way to where they need to go. The framework for solving a problem consists of identifying the goal. Where do you want your students at the end of this lesson or the end of this unit? Where are you going to start them? You have to find a place to start. And then all possible solution paths from the starting place to the ending goal. It's like a flow chart. If you're here, or do you go here or do you go there? If you go here, where do you go from there? If you go over here, where do you go from there? You have to anticipate. You have to think through this, and you have to keep it going. An excellent classroom goal for the beginning teacher is to help students become more effective and more productive problem solvers. How are they solving a problem? If they're solving it correctly, that's fine. Can you teach them a different way now to get to that point. Too much of the time we take them over here and we never tell them how we got over here. We just go there and we don't give them the links in the chain to get over there. And they get more confused and more confused. You don't want them confused. You want them to know what they're doing and how to continue to do it in that way, and give them a different way, a different avenue sometimes to help them. Students who are poor problem solvers need experience in facing puzzling situations and defining problems. They also need experience in identifying and selecting worthwhile goals. This is a very simple piece for a second grade classroom that I did. I had a group of boys in a second grade classroom that loved Star Wars. But what I found as we were doing some things is these boys and most of the kids in the class had not any experience or very limited experience with putting a puzzle together. They didn't understand that you started on the edges and worked in. So I found 4 Star Wars puzzles, and they all kind of went together. So I would put one out and I would let them work on it. They would work on the Star Wars puzzle until they got it together and they figured it out, and I talked to them. We worked on it, that you put the outside together first and then you had to look at the shapes and be critical in your thinking. Well, I had 4 of them, and after they got all 4 of them put together, they were all back in the boxes. One of them thought they would be real smart, and they dumped all 4 of them on the back table, and they were going to do it from there. And guess what? It didn't work. They couldn't get it figured out, so then we had a mess. So then we had to really work at that and do some problem solving and some critical thinking to get that all put back the way we needed it to go. When a problem has been defined and a goal established, it's possible to be either efficient or inefficient in reaching the goal. You want them to be efficient. You want to show them how they can be efficient to reach the goals that you're setting before them. Efficiency in problem solving can be increased when students learn how to identify alternative strategies. The only way they can identify those is if they learn them. You have to teach the strategies that you need them to know. Introducing them in a lesson one time is not enough. They have to own the strategies you are asking them to use. They need those strategies to reach the goal and recognize which ones are likely to provide the best and the quickest routes to success. Now, that's the best and quickest route to success for them. Not all of your students will find that they can get to that goal by the same route. This can be done by helping students visualize the probable effects of each alternative and apply the criteria to help them choose the most valuable means of solving the problem they've defined. This is crucial. They have to be able to feel like they can solve a problem that you give them. But you have to teach them the problem-solving strategies first. I can't tell you that enough. When they brainstorm, brainstorming seems like a very simple little down and dirty. And it is, but it isn't. When you brainstorm something, the teacher may ask you to give answers, to give what do you think of, or what do you think of when someone says blah, blah, blah. So you're throwing it out, but number two and number 3 are big. Number 2, I would think, is bigger than number 3. Because while you're brainstorming ideas, while you're throwing out ideas, it's done without criticism and without evaluation. You put it down. You write it down. You worry about figuring it out later. But you get it down, because if you don't, you're going to shut these kids down. They are going to not give you any ideas if you criticize or evaluate them as you're going by. Then you have to decide what's your criteria for judging the solutions that you generate. Are they good? Are they bad? Based on what? What are you basing your judgments on? And then use the criteria to select the best possible solution the best possible solution may not be the best possible solution for every student in your classroom. You have to know what your students are capable of, because you're going to have students at all different, not only all different reading levels, but all different thought processes and all different thinking levels, if you will. You have to know your kids. You have to be able to generate those questions. You need to prepare those questions in your lesson planning. They don't all have to be higher level, but you need to work them up to higher level as you go through your lessons. They can be on the surface to start with, and then you start digging deeper. As you start digging down, the thought processes ratchet up. It's a reciprocal process. Rather than formulating a series of questions, you as the teacher supply a dilemma or a puzzle. You teach the students the steps involved in brainstorming, and then you lead them through the process itself. Model, 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 model. If I do this, what's going to happen? If I do that, what's going to happen? If we do nothing, what's going to happen? The techniques of brainstorming call for the teacher to pose the question or the problem in such a way that it engages the students. If you shut them off right away, they're done. There's no point in doing whatever it is you plan on doing. Interest, whatever interests and motivates them, they take it, when it does that, they take it seriously. You want them to take what you're doing seriously if you're doing it for a serious issue. Because students may not be proficient at discussion, it's frequently necessary for the teacher to give additional clues and suggestions as a scaffold. This has to be worked into. That's why I said brainstorming on its surface is a fairly simple process. But when you start digging down, it is not. It's much more involved than just throwing out ideas. If we're going to throw out ideas, that's fine, but then we have to know how we're going to use those to do our problem solving. We're going to stop here with open-ended questions. We will pick up later with open-ended questions. And I just want you to stay healthy. Don't hoard toilet paper. The grocery stores are starting to get their shelves restocked. And I hope you have enough hand sanitizer. I'm really hoping that you're paying attention and doing what I'm doing and being absolutely bored out of my mind sitting at home with the cats. And so we will continue this discussion on the next video.